least once before. It does sound very familiar. But I was mostly, identifying SpaceMarine. And the next series is going to be whoever wins this versus Drogo, so I thought it'd be a good place to start off. Like I said, a lot of the fan favorites that you guys are probably hoping to see today actually were invited, so... I'll actually go ahead and look up the list of people who are invited just to get them out of the way after I do the introduction. So it's a best of 3. In the bottom right as the yellow Protoss, he is SpaceMarine. In the top left as the green Terran, it is Wanderer. Who for some reason I also want to say was a bit cheesy last time I cast him, so... maybe I'm totally misremembering, maybe I'm not. But he is going for a gas first versus Protoss, which already has me believing he's going to do something a bit aggressive. But anyways. Anyhow. Yeah, let's go ahead and check out the people who were invited. It should have been this yesterday too for North America. So for Europe, you have the 8 invited players being Showtime, Clem, Hero Marine, Euthermal, a Laser, Lambo, Rainer, and Serral. So basically, all the fan favorites as well. It's kind of neat, actually, looking at it and talking about it, that a lot of the best players we have are fan favorites. And I know there's obviously always some correlation with that. People just like to see people repetitively and cheer for them repetitively, right? But, I don't know, I feel like there's been times in the past of any sport, esport or otherwise, where, like, the best team, the best players actually were kind of, annoying. But, no, they're all really cool. So they're already in. They don't have to worry about playing until, like, 2 weeks from now, I want to say. For North America, the people who had already been invited were Estrella, Neeb, Future, and Scarlet, which is why you didn't see them try and qualify yesterday. Anyways, got that covered. Got that covered. And now we're gonna find out who the 8 additional players are in this qualifier here today. There are 3 qualifiers, 8 from each one, I do believe, and that's a lot of slots. Now Europe has a wide talent pool. It's always been one of those discussion points between NA and Europe, and well, actually every region. So I think we've all maybe gotten tired of those discussions. But anyways, Europe does get the most. North America second, and then... is China third? Actually, I don't remember. It falls off pretty dramatically after North America, but it's like... it goes like 8 players each qualifier, to 4 players each qualifier, to 2 players each qualifier, to 1 player qualified, and 1 player qualified. That's kind of what I remember from the graph. You can always find out more if you're very interested in the format. Anyways. Today, the story is who makes it to the round of 16. Right? So, what would that be? If round of 8's quarterfinals is 4 matches, quarter each. Is there a word for 8? Like, wait, what's the word for 8? Oct? Finals? Is that... no? I don't know what that would be. But anyways, they make the round of 16, and they win that, then they qualify. That's the point. That's the point I was trying to make. So today might actually not be that long, because they also haven't really been holding qualifying matches. And there's plenty of casters to, mix and match around the games. But that's good news for the players who don't have to play long, grueling days like they used to back in, even WCS qualifiers are pretty long for Europe, because they also had a double elimination thing going on. Not so for these ones, but a lot of chances to get in. So I do have Wanderer doing something weird. I feel like I remember this guy 2-raxing is actually what I was like specifically remembering, but of course you don't really do that too often versus Protoss. But this guy is still doing something weird and a little bit new as well. Seeing an armory for drilling claws is actually not totally the weirdest thing ever. It is definitely off as far as builds go for this matchup, but of course nowadays you get the armory, you immediately get the needing detection issue. One of mines will be cloaked as soon as they burrow, so you don't need to research drilling claws, you just need to get the armory. So pretty different. SpaceMarine did go for a couple of sentries pretty early on. He actually went for a kind of more interesting opener than I gave him credit for. I was so focused on what the Terran was doing. But he went for a very fast third Nexus off of just gateways He has taken all 4 of his gases, but as you can see in the production tab, he's only slapped down all of his tech structures, really. Every structure that you would see just now. Where usually you would see Twilight Council on 2 bases or a Robo on 2 bases. So a bit greedy here. Now the important news is he's going to have a Robo for an Observer, but not particularly quickly. He's not going to have Blink finishing up to help clean these things up. So it's still going to be a difficult process for Space Marine. But this is the type of game that theoretically he could perfectly defend, right? This is not Marines and tanks knocking on his front door, barging in. These are Widow Mines that actually can be microed against. So you only lose 3 or 4 probes per drop. Okay, well that one just killed 3, so. Not perfect so far, but on top of that, you don't really have to do this perfectly so much, as you do have what is hopefully going to be a huge influx of probes and economy to kind of make up almost, right, for your probes dying. You're like, well, I have 60 probes and you killed 9, so well, that sucks, like I'm actually still okay type situation. But so far this has actually been a little bit clumsy. I mean, 12 probes have gone down, a Stalker went down too because Blink isn't available to micro away from the Widow Mines, and Wanderer has gotten a pretty good start to his Widow Mine drops, especially because his medevacs are living because Blink isn't available. So not like Space Marine was really hoping for. He actually has been cut down to size. He's very close in workers to Wanderer, which is not great for Protoss. And Wanderer is actually doing a pretty good job of macroing. He is slipping, certainly a little bit here. Extra barracks should be coming down. There they are now. But his 3rd CC is done, and you know what? Actually, he doesn't have a tank. I just kind of assumed he would have a tank. Okay, so this is a little bit concerning. The Stalkers are here, they have Blink, the numbers have grown, and there is not a lot to work with for Wanderers. So this is definitely one of the downsides of the build, but if your macro is really tight, you can still have enough bio with stim and combat shields. It's just that Wanderer's like his macro wasn't the tightest, but Space Marine is still losing probes on the east side of the map, and that is something we really have to consider. As he takes out the bio here, it could snowball, but he has yet to really dig into the SCVs. He's getting close to it, though. More SCVs have to be pulled into the Stalkers. More Prism is available, but there's not a lot of production. Space Marine has been on these 3 gateways since the beginning of the game. So it looks like Wanderer with his 4th and 5th barracks at least able to produce a single Marine at a time. Could probably start holding, but he actually does something a little bit greedy for the situation he's in. It's a little bit dangerous to add on the reactor and the tech lab, but it does look like he's fine. 3 more Stalkers, holding 6 Stalkers. That's actually not that scary. A couple more Widow Mines go down. Space Marine simply adds on another Nexus, so he'll soon have quadruple probe production, but really didn't get the counter he was quite looking for. And it's cool that he traded out with the bio, but he really wanted to grab more than 8 SCVs. Really wanted to get him to panic and grab, like, 16 SCVs. Then he'd feel a little bit better about his economic situation. He still has to worry about a couple other things. Not having charge and only just starting +2, which is going to give Wanderer an upgrade lead for maybe 20 seconds. It actually depends if Space Marine just always chronos this. And it actually might be a totally even upgrade situation. Yeah, you won't have charge. I don't think I'll have Storm, and certainly won't have Colossus. It's Wanderer, I mean, despite having a significant army lead, is feeling a little shy about pushing out here. If he pushed out, his upgrades would all finish with the timing, but Space Marine is going to at least buy a couple extra seconds with a little bit of a drop. Really would like Wanderer to push out. It's so hard to tell exactly what you're up against, of course, but unfortunately, this is his timing coming and going. The army supplies will get closer and closer now that Space Marine has his 4th base up, although it is being harassed, and his gateway's done. I don't know where his chronos have gone into recently. Okay, Storm and +2. So, charge, I mean, I think that will finish. Doesn't really have a whole lot of zealots. He's got to be building up his army while he continues to defend all this harassment. He got the 70 probes, Wanderer up to 74 SCVs. That actually Space Marine just doesn't have anything out in the map to scout this. But nothing was out in the map at all, and the Stalkers aren't trying to catch it. And the Observers weren't out. This actually is a real... I mean, I was a little worried about Wanderer missing his timing, but he hit it. No problem there. Even does have that upgrade lead I was talking about. Guardian Shield certainly helps, and the lack of medevacs makes this somewhat manageable, and it does actually sacrifice all these units for the Nexus. But it's not just a Nexus. It's a Nexus and 24 probes, and 1 or 2 units here. Doesn't quite get the Sentry, but that was still a really good maneuver. Wanderer, again, maybe a little, you know, slow to the macro, is actually building a 5th command center already. Needs to start producing from every single production facility. Actually, just needs to get 3 more, is what the problem is. 3 more barracks need to come down. Or a 2nd starport, or what have you, but... This 900 mineral bank is concerning. No doubt. No doubt at all. SpaceMarine just cleared up all of Wanderer's offensive units, and, this does not look too convincing, but we do have a triple drop going to the main base, and that's where the army supply is right now. SpaceMarine, does he have anything back at home? We do have 4 Archons somewhere, but oh, there they are. Okay, there's, oh boy, we got a little base raid going on, I think. Big drop in the main base. There is an Artosis pylon, but Wanderer's not paying attention. He's actually paying attention back at home. He's pulling the SCVs and Archons, usually never a good sign. There are a couple of EMPs, though I already used them. No more ghosts are on the way, and oh, the storm right in the heart of the army. And the SCVs are getting chopped to bits by the Zealots and the Archon. And this does not look like it's going so well for Wanderer, to be honest. I mean, he's taken a very long time in the main base of SpaceMarine to actually choose what he wants to kill. Finally gets on top of that pylon, but it was a little bit slow going there. At least he goes up to the high ground of his own base and starts to whittle away at SpaceMarine's army, but this is getting really weird. SpaceMarine still has 3 mining bases. He is going to be stalled out on upgrades, and finally all those pylons producing on the production facilities are finally gone. So this is so weird, but, take a brief second to really evaluate. Wanderer down to 14 workers. He's going to have 2 orbitals, with a 3rd being a planetary, actually. So that is definitely helpful. The army supplies are even, but the upgrades will shortly be in favor of Wanderer. He doesn't have any ghosts, just the single one, so storms could be impactful. Like, SpaceMarine feels like he's going to be the one coming out ahead still. I mean, Wanderer really did take a long time to actually move with this main army. If he had immediately stimmed and sniped all of the pylons, he could have sniped pylons, sniped High Templar, sniped Forge, sniped Nexus, and instead it was kind of just all over the place, right? So I think that would have put him in a bit of a better position. Obviously the main Nexus is getting mined out, so it's not like the most important thing to take care of, but still 1 less probe in production. And most importantly, he didn't have anything else going on. There was no, you know, single drop to the 3rd or the 4th that killed a bunch of probes. But Wanderer's army is, it's no joke. 1 EMP could also be very helpful. There's a good number of medevacs, which is always something to consider here. And I think he kept most of his tech structures alive, so he still has the Ghost Academy, whereas SpaceMarine did lose his Templar Archive. So 1 Ghost versus, 0 High Templars. They all died, actually. There was the one in the middle of the map that was sniped. Big drop in the main base once again. This isn't actually the, again, like I was saying, it's not the most tempting spot necessarily, but he will have the high ground to work out. And that Nexus does finally go down. It looks like SpaceMarine was thinking about going up that ramp, but yeah, the Archons couldn't actually even fit through, so I don't think he really should. I don't know about this. The Guardian Shield gets bopped instantly, and EMP goes down. And Wanderer is just going to skedaddle, leaving 1 poor Marauder back in the main base. A couple Zealots went over to the other side of the map and are now being pulled back. I don't know if that's on purpose or just an F2. Another EMP obliterates the Archon. The army of Wanderer is just too good. And SpaceMarine taps out. Kind of a funky game there. Kind of a funky game. But ultimately going in favor of Wanderer. His army just a little too good. Even if the storms were available, there was just a nice number of medevacs. Eighth finals. There's a reason no one ever says it. players are so fast, so quick. Well, they forgot game heart in this case, but that's okay. Alright, going on an Everdream. In the top right is the orange Protoss. We have SpaceMarine. And bottom left is the green Terran Wanderer. You know, a little bit aggressive. I don't know if cheese is the right word, but being aggressive in the early game with the armory attached to the Wintermine drops. I mean, the armory is still an investment. It still messes up a normal build for sure, but it is definitely better than also having to go into Drilling Claws, which is 150, 150, I'm pretty sure. So, and a tech lab on your factory, which means you can't produce as many Wintermines. You get the picture. It's really nice, actually, to be able to have cloaked Wintermines again. Now, it's not to make a cheese, although maybe providing a mid-game, early to mid-game aggression, another way of being aggressive towards the Protoss might actually end up helping the balance, tip it in favor of the Terrans, but that's not what you want it. But it was designed more so that pesky third base grab, that more so timing-wise, the TVP, that would be easier for the Terran. But, you know, with anything ever introduced into StarCraft 2, people will find a way to abuse it, so. Just like the Nexus being used in cannon proxies. So there's a second barracks. SpaceMarine knows something is up. You don't build a second supply depot without building a command center first. When you get to be a certain league, it's not ideal. But what is it? So he sees one gas. Now, I think that actually might be enough information to say that it is a Turax. But what's interesting is that it's not, Turax Reaper. It's not Turax Marauder. Obviously, it's not proxied. Both of them aren't proxied. It's one Marine and one Marauder proxied, and that might be where SpaceMarine messes up a little bit more. Because I don't know if you actually 100% determine, based on the time that your probe died, that it's not Turax Reaper, which isn't popular versus Protoss for sure, but it does happen. You know, it's definitely not just Marines. At least you got that out of the way, but yeah. SpaceMarine actually using a Chrono on his Nexus. I'm a little surprised by that. I guess trying to fit in the economy just before having to fit in the actual defense, but I'm getting a little worried here. Like, certainly he must realize that this is aggression. He didn't send a probe out to try and scout at all, and I'm afraid SpaceMarine actually just might be derping a little bit. He does see the attack now. It looks like an awfully small attack, but there's two Marauders that are going to slow that Adept and kill her. The Adept Shade might choose to go through, even if it can. Cannot. Two gateways don't help very much. Shield battery finally goes down, but I think SpaceMarine just didn't actually really think about what he was seeing in the main base. This is definitely surprising to me. Trying to build a shield battery, also need to worry about additional pylons. Bunkers are going to come down here, and SpaceMarine went for that sentry first to guard against that mid-game aggression, not the super early-game aggression, which, yeah, was just unfortunately incorrect here. Stalker's going to pump out. A Warp Gate's going to finish right after that, so there will be two more units very, very soon. Shield batteries will finish up as well, but now you have production that at the very least will be killed. That's 300 minerals that aren't going to help out very much, and with so many units still alive for Wanderer, he actually still absolutely has a chance to just roll over SpaceMarine here. Now, the shield battery is doing some good work, and there is going to be a shield battery overcharge from that Nexus, but this was more awkward than it should have been. Now, this stuff is almost always awkward, to be fair. Like, it's a little bit difficult to deal with, even if you know it's on the way. I think this is more awkward than it was supposed to be, considering the scout SpaceMarine got. Single Zealot might just survive here. There's the overcharge on the shield battery, but that shield battery only reaches so far, not far enough to protect the units actually taking down the bunker, taking down the SCVs, repairing the bunkers. That thing probably won't go down for quite some time. Sim is actually on the way. Wanderer continuing to dedicate to one base. He's built a third barracks and is actually going up to upgrades here. More Marauders, more Marines. Everything has an add-on, and this is looking A little bit desperate. SpaceMarine's going to try and pop this bunker. Guardian Shield gets focus fire. Nicely done by Wanderer. The Zealots simply just don't have the DPS. And the Stalkers are trying to take down the Marauders, so they're not taking down the SCVs, which are repairing the bunker, and that's probably going to be it. If you don't bust them right then and there, if you don't get rid of that bunker then and there, it just gets harder from here on out, especially since Sin is done. Ay, ay, ay. Yep, put in the weak ones in the bunker. Really nicely done there by Wanderer. He's going to finally add on a command center as well as a factory. SpaceMarine, at the very least, has held on to his natural nexus and actually producing probes his entire time. I guess with the amount of production he had or didn't have, he's had excess minerals. So there is that to consider. As much as it sucks not to get rid of this, having 2 base saturation is definitely something. Wanderer might not have been able to push forward enough to make this work worth it, as scary as it is for a bunker to be right outside her natural. But not getting into the heart of the probes, not having a probe pull into this, not being able to leapfrog the bunkers forward, actually might be too bad for Wanderer. And SpaceMarine is up 8 probes, which, I mean, isn't like... It's not the best place for Protoss, who's also now stuck on 2 bases and going to be able to reach toward a 3rd. But it's not bad, and Wanderer is still reinforcing and not giving credit to the idea that a Robo could have finished somewhere and produced a Warp Prism, so that could be very, very tricky. Wanderer should probably just evacuate and go home if he wanted to play it safe, but he just maybe thinks he doesn't have to play it safe. There are a lot of units, and they're getting close to, like, 3-shotting these Zealots. When they stim, they're going to do a lot more. Warp Prism reveals itself in the natural. There's only a few units available. No, those are SCVs. It's SCV line and a Marine. That's not very helpful. Medevacs do start up here. Might even want to produce a Viking to make sure the Warp Prism doesn't get to freely roam around his base. This is awkward. Doesn't raise the supply depot. I don't know what was happening. I guess he maybe panicked a little bit. Pulling the SCVs into the Adepts is a great idea if you have more units. A couple more Marines do pop out, but more Adepts are being warped in, and these things are going to be really difficult to kill. Marauder pops out as well, and it looks like with the Marines, or the SCV surround, sorry, like that might actually be enough. Stim and combat shields are done, so that actually really helped this one Marine. Otherwise, he'd be dead, for sure. And that wasn't as bad as it could have been. Still losing SCVs. 10 SCVs go down, putting SpaceMarine now up by like 16. I mean, that's a lot better. That's a lot better. But don't forget that Wanderer has a 3rd CC, so it could be replaced very easily. Triple Mule is also no joke. And Wanderer will eventually lose access to this 3rd production facility. Luckily, Tech Labs are the fastest thing to build, but you have to bring that barracks all the way back, which might not happen anytime soon. SpaceMarine has added on a Disruptor and a Colossus. 2nd Colossus on the way. SpaceMarine has a worker lead, and while he doesn't have the army lead, his army type is quite good. You can bully this army back with Colossus and Force Fields and Disruptor to stop any chase sequence that could happen. It is definitely complicated, though. Like, as much as he could try and roam around this choke and say, you know, you come to me, you get baited into me. Wanderer also doesn't ever have to get baited into the army. You can always have this concave around here and just say, well, no, you come to me, and then if you do, I'm going to jump on top of you. So, SpaceMarine, I think he was right to kind of just try to bully his opponent, but I also think he's right to pull back, especially if that Warp Prism is stuck somewhere. It's not actually stuck, he just isn't using it to reinforce. Just waiting to come back in for some more Adept harassment. Probe's going to start placing down proxy or drop scouting pylons. Funnily enough, the probe itself scouts the drop into the main base. There are also some stalkers that are actually waiting almost so close to 2-shotting that medevac would have been very helpful, but most, if not all, of the units actually unload. 2 medevacs still here to heal. That upgrade is gone, and it was so close to finishing too. At least Blink will hold on in the Twilight Council, but losing an upgrade does suck as Wanderer starts up his 2 upgrades. He's got one on the way. And he could add an armory and swap over to Wood of Mine production. Right now he's actually going into tanks. I mean, if he's, actually, like, it's a weird time to start tanks, is what I'm, you know, debating with myself about. It's a weird time to start tanks, but it's also a weird game because it opened like it did. But usually, if you're not going to produce tanks from the get-go defensively or doing an attack with tanks, like, you just You're gonna go right into Widow Mines, but oh well. Maybe it is like legitimate tank production, or maybe just he's a little scared of the situation here. He does need to add on his gases, that's for sure. Very gas starved. Big push into the third base and double drop into the main. The Stalkers aren't quite in position. I don't know if SpaceMarine is paying attention. He's got 2 Disruptors, 2 Colossus, and 2 Guardian Shields. The 2-2-2 defense on that third base, and it looks like it's going to be good enough. Those non-charge lot Zealots actually looking very weak, but still doing the job, being the punching bags. These ones actually warped in on top of the bio do get to slice and dice, and this drop did not do that much, considering it managed to avoid the Stalkers. Wanderer needs to probably just return back home, and like I said about the tech lab, yeah, I really think you should go into Widow Mines, because it's also like, I mean, if you do this and you get to eventually 6 tanks, then okay, that's fair. A 6 tank push is still scary, but it's going to take you a long time to get to 6 tanks, especially if you're going to try and continue pushing and dropping with them. So, I don't know. I still don't know about this. I would love to see more Widow Mines, personally. 4th base on location, actually, is not totally greedy, but Wanderer does know the War Prism method there somewhere, so he's a little greedy. Armory is done, so we can go immediately into 2-2. SpaceMarine did go for double forge, kind of make up for that lost forge earlier on, and is probably going to start working on the Chronos. I mean, things have calmed down, but they don't have that great of sight on each other. Not a lot of observers out in the map. The pylons never actually came down. That probe just built this kind of proxy pylon. And Wanderer doesn't have any Marines on the map either. So both of them playing a little bit in the dark. And unfortunately, that means that this army is just going to sim up against the third base of SpaceMarine once again. Kind of similar to last game, and SpaceMarine is forced to just commit to the attack that he was planning, or maybe not. Disruptors actually return back home, but they're probably the worst thing to send back home on their own, because they get concaved on, they get taken out. This Disruptor is not even going to try and shoot, as SpaceMarine is focused on many things at once. This is actually super awkward. Command Center fishes, which is actually kind of important because the Colossus aren't helping the rest of the army over here, so that's going to give time for Wanderer to actually accumulate army on that high ground. Disruptor gets a bit of a shot, but the lift is going to go into the main base, and the force field actually working against the Disruptors for now. It looks like there's so many Disruptors, and they're not quite caught out in the open, that they might just be able to hold here, but this has once again gone into a base trade, and oh no, the double upgrades! Alright, that wasn't the pylon, that was the pylon! Oh, despite the chrono. Depowered means depowered, man. You're not gonna do anything else. No upgrades here. Disruptors starting to get dropped on, running out of their spells, getting focus fire down. This one just pick up, And there you go, all Disruptors will die. Meanwhile, the Zealots died trying to charge up the ramp of the main base of Wanderer. Those Colossus were so flippin' lazy. They didn't help at all. They were attacking a damn command center. And now Liberators are out, Marauders are out, and they didn't even kill the thing. They didn't even kill the command center. SpaceMarine is losing control of his main base and his offensive army. He does still have 4 Nexus actually, but there's nothing else for him. Wanderer is going to take the 2-0, and really impressed me. I mean, SpaceMarine, maybe you don't know much about him, but